All right, Andrew, hit us with that spoiler cast theme song for the week.
Rogue One is really awesome. It's really awesome.
It is so great.
There you go.
It is so great.
There's a little Bill Murray impersonation there almost. Welcome to the spoiler cast, where the theme song is different every week because we would never want to spoil it. We are going to talk a little bit about Rogue One, a Star Wars story, not worrying about spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want any spoilers, just go listen to the regular review, and then after you watch the movie, come back and listen to this one. Yeah, guys, this movie was awesome.
Grandma Tarkin, why?
Grandma
You want to start
Tarkin.
there? You want to start there? Let's start there.
It's the biggest thing. It's the
That
biggest
is
thing.
not
really
where
is.
I want to start, but sure.
All right, we'll go to where you want to start second. So we'll get there quickly. But yeah, it was so distracting to me.
Wow.
I
Bringing
got
back
over it.
Tarkin, I couldn't. It was so uncanny valley for me. Every time he was on the screen, I was like, oh, I feel like a Clone Wars character just stepped onto my actual human being movie.
I feel like for me, it would have been more worse decision for them to either recast or move around him, because that guy is the commander of the Death Star.
Correct, but I don't think they needed him in the story to be that central role in the story. You could have had him still be the Death Star commander, but just not have lines or be, central, or, one time a conversation could be going, maybe you see him standing, in the distance from the back or something. We're just not there yet.
Have Ben Mendelsohn be the one in charge of the Death Star after he dies, Grandma Tarkin gets promoted.
Sure, yeah. There's ways to solve it. I just think they thought they could nail it, and I just don't think they quite did.
Yeah,
Leia looked perfect, though.
I don't agree. I thought Leia was Uncanny Valley as well, but I would have forgiven it more because it was so quick.
Yeah. No, I thought Leia looked like eerily realistic.
By the way, Leia shows up at the end of the movie, as you know if you've seen it,
For
just
like
for a split second,
0.7 seconds.
which is beautiful story-wise. I love the way the ending built to that moment.
Right up until
Right up to that moment. Oh, I loved that so much.
Which, speaking of the ending there,
Remember when I said the last moment of this film was the best and most terrifying?
the dance that we were doing
Yeah, is that where you want to start?
was Darth
Vader getting unleashed.
Like that, at no other point in any of it, including the prequels, do you ever feel like Darth Vader's actually that big of a problem.
Yeah.
It's like everyone talks about how Vader's a threat. You can force choke dudes. That's pretty upsetting if you're not also a force user. But the real danger was everything else. Those soldiers were trapped in there with what is ostensibly a monster from their nightmares.
Yeah. It did not hit me that way, guys.
Really?
It really didn't. I remember the scene now that you're talking about, the Darth Vader, because this is all going on, by the way, at the end of this movie when all of our heroes are dying, everything's going down, that kind of stuff.
Did you see the fog? I don't know if it showed up in your viewing.
It looks like darkness just spreading.
Yeah. Whenever he walks in the room.
Maybe I do need to see it in laser to really get the full effect of it.
That's why I'm asking. In laser IMAX, there was after the room goes black, you can still see an even darker black fog.
Really?
Floating into the room.
It's
around
like just
him.
the dark side of the Force was in there with them.
And it was the creepiest thing ever.
And then he just ignites that lightsaber, and you're like, oh no.
It's all going down.
Yeah.
I just remember, I guess my emotion was more geared towards, because this is in the moments where they're trying to get that information that all of our heroes have given their lives for on this little disc to the rebellion so that they can have it. And so my emotion was all geared towards, get it out of there, and not as much of it was geared towards, oh my goodness, Darth Vader's killing people like crazy.
I think also, not only is it Darth Vader being unleashed, it's the first time in any of the movies that we really see somebody fight with the Force. Like Darth Vader or Yoda, that was weird. Yoda flips around a bunch and they throw some stuff every now and then.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10 in any Jedi or Sith fight, they do one Force push and then they forget that they have the Force ever again.
Right. Yeah.
Here, he's just every other attack is a Force move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's throwing it, he holds a dude up against the ceiling and just crushes him.
Yeah.
Just while he's also chopping dudes down.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember what you're talking about now. I think that's what it was for me. Is I was so wrapped up in how beautiful I thought it was that that everything is on the line, right? I mean, all these people have given their lives, and if Vader gets to that little, disc thing or whatever, it's all for nothing. It feels like it's all for nothing, and it's just like I think I was really wrapped up in that, and
which is still super great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's funny because we know he doesn't get to it,
but like there was still like that part of us, like, what if he does though?
Yeah.
What if this is the reboot?
That's kind of the sign of a great movie at work, right? Is it makes you even question the things because you're so enveloped in it.
Full suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you see this movie in laser and then you see that dark fog rolling in around him,
sounds interesting.
And then
I was planning on going down and seeing it in laser at some point. So
the only thing lighting up that room is his lightsaber. Just giving it that red hue around that room is
the
terrifying.
Horror of those guards, like the soldiers, just like nope.
Let me out.
So the other specific things we mentioned in the podcast proper that we want to make sure we get to are the little wink moments. The one I think we were specifically talking about didn't need was with the guys from the bar. That's the one I was talking about.
I was
talking about C-3PO and R2-D2.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying was important to the story.
Was C-3PO and...
Because you have to know that they're on the ship.
Yeah.
That they get on the ship. That's what I was talking about, why it's... The guys in the bar, that was just a meh.
I didn't get why... I mean, of all the stupid characters to accidentally run into...
Also, they would have had to have immediately left the planet.
Right, yeah.
So that one was odd, but like it was so minor. The reason C-3PO and I would have just like had them be getting on the ship, so that if you're like watching the ship being loaded, you're like,
does C-3PO and R2-D2?
Instead of just like, and here we cut away
so
to
more of
C-3PO.
More of like a subliminal cameo than like a full blown cameo.
An Easter egg.
Instead of a cameo.
Here's C-3PO saying C-3PO things for half a second, where he's nowhere else in the film.
I was really glad we didn't see Han. I was really glad they didn't try to shoehorn Han Solo in somewhere.
That would have been really weird if they would have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was some talk that the reason they had to cast Han so early was that he was making an appearance in this movie at some point. So that was a rumor
that wouldn't
back.
That wouldn't make sense then.
Well, it would have had to been a flashback.
Yeah.
Of some sort.
It would have ruined the pacing of the movie terribly.
Yeah.
Unless he was just like in the movie for like half a second, in which case...
So do you want to run down chronologically what happens in this movie?
Sure, we can kind of take a look at it. Let's just talk about the things that we, feel are important to talk about now that we're not worried about spoilers, but go ahead, yeah.
So we know that Jen, the girl, whenever she's a kid, her father, who's played by Mads Mikkelsen...
Great performance.
He's so good. Both of them actually were really
always good, Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we find out that his character is actually a brilliant architect,
engineer
an engineer. And Ben Mendelsohn's character, I'm trying not to confuse people with Mickelson and Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
But Ben Mendelsohn is an Imperial officer who is in charge of going and getting Mads Mikkelsen, Galen,
It's the character's name, yeah.
It's his character's name, back to finish the Death Star.
Director, what was his name? Director something.
Yeah. I had it pulled up here.
I loved him as the secondary villain. I thought that character was menacing and yet kind of funny. And
I think he's more of the primary villain.
Would you say primary? I always think Vader's the primary villain.
Krennic.
Yeah, Director Krennic. Yeah, he's definitely the primary antagonist.
Okay,
I actually think Darth Vader is the sub villain in this.
Secondary,
because he doesn't really interact with the primary protagonist.
No, fair enough.
And the fact he's in the movie for 4 minutes.
Yeah, fair enough.
Even though it's some of the most crazy 4 minutes.
Yeah,
I loved him. I thought he was
great.
He was menacing with a smirk. You know,
and he was
did you ever watch
conniving.
Bloodline?
I didn't.
Oh, okay. That's where I was first introduced to.
And they set him up. They set him up really well there at the beginning because he lands on their planet where they're hiding. You know, the father sends the daughter to go hide in the special hiding place, but she sits and watches. So we know she's watching her mom and dad. You know, her mom get killed by this guy and her dad taken away, and it really sets up just the emotion and all the payoff is set up there right from the beginning with that one scene.
It was in that one scene that I knew that this film was going to be well acted, because just the performance between the banter going back and forth between Galen and Krennic was like haunting and eerie, and
like his instinctual lie to say that his wife is dead.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and you just know that he doesn't believe it.
Yeah. So he goes back to the Death Star. He goes and builds the Death Star. Basically, without him, they don't have the Death Star. And I like that the movie occasionally really takes a few moments to go, what about that decision? Is that the right decision?
Well, he believes that the Death Star would exist without him.
Right. I know. He believes that.
Yeah.
But is that true? Like it's kind of one of those things where it's like, what if you were in that situation? Would you build the nuclear bomb, so to speak? Those guys that built the nuclear bomb.
But then the thing that everybody complains about A New Hope is addressed in this movie at that moment.
Which, to take a moment away from that's a planet-killing laser. That's got to generate some heat. The fact that exhaust port is so small is actually kind of miraculous, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how space lasers work. I apologize.
Yeah,
I would assume it puts
technically lightsaber shouldn't work either, but hey.
I mean, you're in deep space. It's really cold there. Everything will be fine.
Yeah, but you have to get it out of the station into deep space. Otherwise, you're just cooking a moon.
Hey, we don't know how.
So what
kyber
you're saying is
crystals
somebody couldn't build a Death Star right now? Is that what you're saying?
Actually, didn't NASA say how much it would cost to make the Death Star?
No,
They figured
that was
it out?
the Enterprise.
The Enterprise.
The
okay.
Enterprise. They built the Enterprise.
Nice.
But
Does that include the warp drive?
I would have to.
Yeah.
That was on the Enterprise.
But we can't build that.
I'm sure we can.
yeah,
I mean, if we can, then we should
anything's
be.
possible with radar.
We should definitely be fixing all of our other problems
That's
with
right.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So he is the one that in A New Hope, everybody's like, wow, you could just shoot one little missile into
How
this exhaust port.
convenient that
Yeah.
this amazing space station has a flaw.
Turns out that was intentional from Galen building the Death Star
So great.
just so it could be destroyed later on.
Yeah.
And then Jin, as a little girl, grows up into this really strong, independent woman who
Raised by Saw Gerrera, which is an awesome name.
It is a really awesome name, which is Forrest Whitaker's character. And then he abandons her too, so now she is a loner. She
Double abandon.
Double abandon. But then word gets out from a pilot and an Imperial defector that Galen needs to let the Rebel Alliance know, I have built this flaw into this machine that can destroy entire planets.
Yeah.
Which they never...
He also is telling them that they have a machine that destroys entire planets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which they never fully power up the Death Star in this movie.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a little bit about there. The two things I didn't understand, actually completely separate things. I was thinking of one and then you mentioned the other. The one that you're mentioning right now is why didn't it blow up planets? Did they mention why?
Yeah, they did.
They
They
just
said-
they don't want to power it up to its full.
Yeah, they say they didn't want a statement, they wanted a test. So see if it can, don't crank it up to full power, just see if it can
See what
destroy
happens
this city.
at 50% or whatever.
Exactly.
Also, they didn't want to play their hands too soon because the Imperial Senate was still a thing. Throughout, they called Mon Mothma, is that her name?
Mon Mothma.
She was still a senator for all of that. So is Leia. The Senate is dissolved at the beginning of A New Hope after they're like, we have a planet-killing laser, we don't need you.
Right.
So if before the weapon was fully realized, they were like, yeah, we're going to blow up planets and stuff.
But then everybody would know.
And then they'd move against it. They would lose all of their support prior to having an actually effective weapon.
I see.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it happens towards the beginning, so I'll just go ahead and mention it as well. What happened with the guy that our hero spy guy?
We shot him.
Yeah, but why? But why did he do that?
Because he wasn't going to make it out of there, and he had the same information he would have cracked under torture.
So it was. I thought that was the intent. Was here's a hard decision he had to make. He actually had to kill somebody on their side. So it wasn't like that was like a dual spy or something, or
No.
he actually had to kill a good guy.
And I love that actually about this film.
No. It is powerful. It's really powerful. Like the hard choices you have to make during war, and what would you do? You know,
because
that and the fact.
By the
that,
way, I don't think I have the strength to do that kind of stuff. Like I don't think if I were in that situation, I could do it.
Well, I'm a pacifist, so I know I couldn't.
Yeah,
but I like the fact that for every single Star Wars movie we've had, the Rebel Alliance has always been 100% pure and good. This is the first time we're seeing that they have to get their hands dirty every now and then.
Yeah.
Because they're losing this war.
Well, that's the truth of war. You know, I mean, you don't come out of war clean.
And that's why I think this movie works so well as not only a good Star Wars movie, like Jareth was saying, but as a good movie in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, we're not those people anymore that we can go like, oh, purely the good guys rebelling against purely the bad guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really make movies that way anymore because those stories don't resonate very well anymore.
Yeah, nuance is a really important part of storytelling, you know, especially modern storytelling.
So the Rebel Alliance, they gather they take Jin and say, your father's alive, he has information for us. Go with this pilot and his robot, K2SO.
I think K2SO.
It was the best thing.
Best part of this entire movie, yeah, besides
I love
Darth Vader.
K2SO, yeah.
And go to this planet where Saw Gerrera is.
Because he has split with the Rebel Alliance, unbeknownst to Galen Erso.
Yeah, and he has information that was sent from your father. They go to this planet, which was not Tatooine, was it?
Mm-mm. No, it was Jeddah.
Jeddah, that's what it was. And
which was
where the Jedi... Wasn't that a Jedi planet?
It was a Jedi temple.
There was a Jedi temple there, yes.
That's where when we get there, we find out that the Empire is looting the Jedi temple to gather all the Kyber crystals.
Yes.
Which the Kyber crystals are what power the Death Star.
And lightsabers.
Which is terrifying because Kyber crystals are inherently strong with the Force.
Yeah.
So those aren't just crystal refractors. That's a Force conduit.
Yeah.
That's like a giant lightsaber, essentially,
exactly,
that they're shooting at a planet.
Yeah. So
I wonder if there's any other ramifications about that.
That'd be interesting to look up. It really would. So they get there on the planet, and K2SO is being hilarious and making everybody laugh. Jin finally runs into... Are you laughing at the fact he just dropped your stuff?
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if you died. Then... so they run into Saw Gerrera. He tells...
Who is bananas.
He's crazy.
He's lost his mind.
He's torturing the Imperial defector.
That was a weird creature.
Oh, yeah.
Like a mind sucker of some sort.
Poor gullet or whatever?
Yeah, the poor gullet. This is what Force Whitaker sounds like in the movie.
Which nothing seemed to come of his comment that sometimes you lose your mind if it... Like...
Well, he was a little loopy for a bit.
Yeah, he seemed a little off, but he did.
He was kind of also half Darth Vader, right? Like with the breathing.
I thought that whenever he first brought that thing up and he started breathing out of that respirator, first thing I thought it was Darth Vader.
Yeah, I was like, oh look, it's Mini Darth.
He had a lot of cybernetics in him,
exactly.
And the three characters that we've seen now, Saw Gerrera included, that are highly cybernetic,
have breathing
all
apparatus,
have pain and breathing issues.
Yeah,
Darth Vader, General Grievous, and Saw.
Yeah,
none of them are happy. They're like, I'm robot dude now. They're like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
No,
that's a good point.
Luke seems to be fine though.
Well, yeah, but that's
just
like
got
minor.
Hey, anyway, so not only do they run into Saw Gerrera and he gives Jin the information, they also run into Donnie Yen's character, who is not a Jedi. They were very clear about saying this man is not a Jedi.
Well, it's one of my favorite parts of the movie is that the Jedi and the Force, for the most part, are completely absent from this movie, and in a tangible way.
And
but it's affecting everything about the movie, and I love that because there's almost an element of faith to it, right? Like his character is a character of faith, which is really interesting.
He's definitely powerful, and looking at him, you're like, how is he doing this?
Yeah.
But like the idea of like the blind monk or the blind samurai is not so removed from us that we're like,
sure.
Oh, we're just like, that's that character.
Yeah.
But,
Exactly.
his prayers and stuff, that's kind of why I wish I'd seen this one first. Its introduction to the Force is way more...
Mysterious?
I was about to say way more better.
Well, that too.
The fact that it kind of eases you into it, you're like,
Yeah.
the Force is definitely a thing.
There's something, yeah. Well, and you could even be like, is it real or is it not real in this movie? You
and
know,
then
like,
whenever you meet Obi-Wan, he's like, I'm going to teach you stuff. And you're like,
whoa, it is real.
Yeah. Well, besides...
Well, and that's why you've got Han Solo saying, hokey religions and ancient mumbo jumbo or whatever
Yeah.
he says, because that's, a lot of people, it had been absent long enough, they
Yeah.
didn't believe.
Well, besides Leia, Donnie Yen's character Chirrut is the only Force-sensitive person we've seen that's not a Jedi.
Mm.
So,
which, according to the extended universe, is actually fairly common.
yeah.
But
Okay, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
also,
so-
I would argue Han Solo is Force sensitive as well. But sure.
Yeah, so we meet Chirrut and Baze, that's his friend's name, who is not at all into the Force
Anymore.
anymore.
Because Chirrut says when they're in the prison that he used to be the most devout monk.
Yeah,
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'd forgotten that. It's part of their story.
exactly.
It's actually his final moment, not his final moment, but the
Like when he
Wine
stops to pray with him.
yeah.
it's really powerful.
Oh, that was heartbreaking. Yeah.
Mhm.
So then...
Kind of always wanted him to get out of there. Chirrut.
Yeah,
He's like,
me
yeah,
too.
just survive.
Yeah, I guess now's as good a point as any. Say nobody survives. Not a
Every
single person survives.
dies.
And I am saddened and love it. Like,
Yeah.
it broke my heart, and at the same time, it's a perfect story choice.
It underscores the absolute sacrifice.
Yeah.
Everything that got us to A New Hope was built on the bones of these people who
Yeah.
gave it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's
before
powerful.
it was just like, Leia has Death Star plans. Sure, cool,
Yeah.
Yeah.
great.
So then after that, the Death Star shows up and says, let's test out this weapon's power, not to its full potential. Let's just try and destroy this city. And it destroys the city.
It apparently creates some sort of giant tsunami of Earth,
Yeah.
which is really crazy.
Beautiful.
And also
even.
super cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible, but still awesome.
Yeah.
Well, technically, a lot of stuff in the Star Wars universe isn't possible.
Oh, yeah.
Like all these...
That
Like all these ships that leave orbit at light speed would totally destroy the atmosphere of every single planet.
Actually, that's
you don't
worth
know what
mentioning.
kind of UPS, Universal Positioning System, they have.
That's actually worth mentioning. So, in that film, when they're leaving Jeddah, Cassian, on the fly, does the calculations for the
Warp drive, or not warp drive.
For the-
Hyperdrive.
for the
Hyperdrive.
hyperdrive and jumps from inside the gravity well
Yeah.
right there. That is an insane move.
That would destroy the planet.
Well,
Well, it would destroy the atmosphere of the planet.
actually, it technically wouldn't, but the fact that the ship survived, he made it was like a split-second decision that was absurd, but he had to do it.
Yeah.
Because the way hyperspace works is you just enter another dimension,
Yeah.
hyperspace,
Mhm.
and but things in our dimension, or their dimension rather, cast gravity shadows, and if you run into one in hyperspace, you explode. He was inside a gravity shadow, which is why there's hyperspace lanes. Those are areas that never have things in them, so they're like, these are safe. You can go through them all the time. He was inside one and did it. And the robot wasn't done with the calculations.
Yeah.
As far as we know, Han Solo can't do that.
Yeah.
At least not as far as we've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, he's exited
Well-
super close, but
Well, his hyperdrive never worked in the Millennium Falcon anyway, so. But so they make it out, and they decide we're going to go to rescue, quote unquote, Galen,
yeah.
Mads Mikkelsen's character. When in fact, one of our characters, Cassian, is going to kill him.
And this is also the point where that scene I mentioned earlier about him killing somebody who was good comes into play as well, because we know he's willing to do the hard thing if he
Yeah.
thinks it's the right thing. And so I think that scene also, now that I think about it, is meant to inform this moment as well, where
You're like, he would.
he will do it. He will pull the trigger if he needs to.
So he leaves on his own once they land on this planet that Cassian is being held on, and he goes to try and snipe him. Turns out he decides not to, but at the same time, the Alliance sends an X-Wing squadron, and they just blow up the base anyway, killing Galen and almost Jen.
Bad move.
They had no way of knowing because they'd lost communications, but still, yeah.
Yeah. So then they all get back on a ship that they steal from the Empire, and then they're heading to the Rebel Alliance base. And that's when Jen is like, you were going to kill my dad. And he's like, well, I didn't. He just died anyway. And so there's a little bit of tension between them. Land on the Rebel base. They inform everybody there's a thing called the Death Star. It can destroy planets. And half of them don't believe it, and the other half are like, well, if they have this power, we should just surrender.
I think it's more like split in thirds. Like, one third's like, I don't believe it. I guess
there's a third, and then there's a third like, let's go fight.
Yeah, like the Mon Calamari guy.
I can't
remember his name.
It was pretty obvious there was going to be no consensus. Like, they weren't going to agree on what to do. There were too many different viewpoints.
Kind of the point of the Death Star is to be so terrifying that at least some of the people are going to be like, I don't want to fight that.
Yeah.
And is every single Mon Calamari going to be an admiral of a fleet? Because you have Akbar, you have this guy, and then there was another one in, I think, Force Awakens as well. They are
naturally great strategists and good pilots.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. So then...
I mean, not to stereotype them or anything, but,
It's about reflexes and intuition.
Yeah.
Great pod racers.
Oh, yeah. So then I bet they would be. But then, so Jen and her crew decide, well, if this is on our shoulders then to go and relay these plans to you to prove that you can destroy this thing. Because a lot of the Alliance people are like, you can't destroy this thing. And Jen says, well, my father sent me this message saying you can.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing they don't believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because that message was destroyed when Jeddah was destroyed.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they don't have the message.
It's also cool how many planets we go to in this one.
We go to like so
especially
many
right at the beginning.
And we go to like 9 planets.
It almost got annoying and confusing at the beginning.
I wouldn't go with annoying. It definitely got confusing.
It almost reminded me of an SNL skit at the beginning where it's just like, and now we're at a different place, and now we're at a different place.
But you know what I think? I think they're relying on multiple viewings of this movie, which they're definitely going to get from me, to where you understand, and it just makes the universe seem that much bigger.
Yeah, no, I understand. I get it.
Because most of the time in the other films is spent on one planet or the other.
Yeah.
With the exception of some of the prequels, they keep going to Naboo and then back to Coruscant.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's another place, but we don't care about it.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, they're like, here's this place. There's people here. We care about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a phenomenal scene in this movie where director Krennic, goes to this lava planet, and it looks so
potentially
familiar.
Mustafar.
Yeah, it looks like Mustafar, which I think it is. I think they
didn't say it was Mustafar.
They don't label it.
They don't label it.
Oh, it had to be.
Yeah,
I just assumed that. I didn't even think that was like a. I just assumed it had to be.
And then you see
isn't Vader there healing?
Yeah, you think it's this. You see this temple, and you're like, oh man, this is where we're going to see Vader. And sure enough, you see Vader walk out of this foggy room, and then you hear James Earl Jones' sweet velvety voice, and it's the greatest feeling on the planet hearing him voice Vader again.
It's like being gently caressed by an earthquake.
Yeah. And then
such a great way to explain it.
And then he starts force choking Krennic, and he lands a pun.
Yep.
Don't choke on your ambition.
Yeah.
So good.
And then I thought that was going to be the only time we saw Vader. I really did think
Did you?
I really did.
God, but then that...
And then that last scene, the terrifying scene, but we're going to get there. So then they head to the Imperial, what would you call it? Archives? The Imperial Archives?
Yeah, the Imperial Archive on Scarif?
Scarif, that's what it was. Thank you. They head to Scarif with this last-ditch all or nothing plan to steal
them and a ragtag group of volunteers, which is a tried and true story telling technique.
Them in the red shirts.
Exactly.
But what we didn't know is they're all red shirts.
Yeah.
So
So
And yet I still cared more about those red shirts than I did any other red shirt in Star
brother.
Wars.
Amen,
Exactly.
brother.
So then this giant stealth assault ensues. So then you have K2SO, Jin, and Cassian sneaking into the archives to steal the records.
So can I just ask you, didn't the archive seem a little archaic to you? Like, why would you need to actually pull them out of some machine? Like, couldn't you just download them onto
I think that they had them like backed up to like hard drives because that way you're not. If you keep something in the cloud can be hacked.
Yeah.
Also, they don't really deal with the cloud ever in Star Wars.
Well, no,
it's not
I
really
don't even
a thing.
mean I don't even mean the cloud. I just mean to be connected directly to some sort of console in the control room where you could be like, "Oh, I want this one on this little thing."
Yeah, I think
have.
that the idea is that this is a vault storing information, and it's critical information.
Yeah.
So they want everything to be.
They want it to be a little more
copy,
complicated.
Exactly.
So that if you're gonna
All
get
right,
in there,
I'll buy it.
Exactly. Plus, it adds an extra bit of drama to the film.
Oh,
You
yeah,
have
it
to
does.
go.
yeah,
So-
with like the claw crane game that they had to play.
Yeah.
So then there's the shield you have to go through to get onto this planet.
I loved that shield.
That was really
I know
cool.
we've seen things like that in other sci-fi movies. I get that like planet shields where there's a port or an opening have been a thing.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, just the look of it
Even
and
in
the way it worked,
Spaceballs, there was.
I just really liked it. I just thought it looked really cool.
Yeah, it looked great. So the Empire shuts that shield. Nothing can get in or out.
Right.
So if they want to beam this information for the Death Star out, the Alliance has to open it up. And that's when all these Alliance ships fly into orbit.
Remind
which
me why
gave
they
me
decided. I mean, it gave me goosebumps as well. Remind me, did we see them deciding to do this, or
Yes.
did they just show up?
Mon Mothma already wanted to,
Yeah.
and then so did the Mon Calamari guy.
Yeah.
But everyone else was like, "We're not going to do it. We don't believe this." But then they were there doing it already.
Yeah.
And the Mon Calamari guy's like, "I'm ready to go."
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, who's with me? We're going.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And then they all decide to go. And then whenever all those Alliance ships come out of orbit right in front of like those Star Destroyers and stuff, I got the goosebumps of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're going to do this. And it was glorious. So there's a battle on planet and then the infamous space battles in Star Wars. And this may be one of the best space battles.
Oh, it was great. It was so good. Both the space battle and the ground battle. Like everything was just
They
firing
lost
perfectly.
super key officers in that fight as well. The general was part of Blue Squadron on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or on the fight near the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty impressive. They take down the shield by pushing one of the Star Destroyers into it, which
Another Star Destroyer.
God, which was awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
I feel like maybe that Star Destroyer should have had some other defenses to handle that, but still, I was like, yeah!
All day.
Yeah.
So
I also wasn't quite sure about the antenna beaming things out. Like it just seemed like old school technology to have it pointed in the right direction or something. I don't know. It was. I mean, I'll go with it. I'm just telling you. When I was watching, I was like, really? You just gotta.
That's kind of part of the idea of Star Wars, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the prequels kind of erased a lot of that, and it was to the detriment of the whole series.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, this giant thing comes into orbit around the planet, and it's the Death Star.
Yeah.
And then Tarkin is like, we can't have them beam out that information, blow up our station. And they aim the Star Destroyer or the Death Star right at the station, and right before it blows it up, they send out the beacon with all the information.
It's also worth noting that Director Krennic gets shot
Directly
by
from
the Death Star.
Did you notice that? Like,
Yeah.
it hit him like right on.
Yeah.
The thing that he spent his entire life to build is the thing that... It wasn't the shockwave that killed him. The beam hit him.
Yeah.
Aim at that jerk.
Yeah. So...
Headshot.
It pretty much was. So then they send out the information Stardust, which is what it was enclosed as, because that's what Galen called Jin as a kid. Send that out into space.
Tear.
Yeah, a little sad. And then, so Cassian and Jin know they can't make it out, because at this point, K2SO has already died, and that
Yeah.
was heartbreaking.
Yeah, that was rough.
gosh.
He went out like a pro, though.
Oh yeah.
And every single person went out doing something vital to the mission.
Yeah.
Which could be a little bit like, really? Like that's how, like that's how it's going to happen?
But
But
it makes you care about
Yeah.
every single person.
I guess technically Jin and I guess they didn't go out while doing something critical to the
No,
mission. But
they finished
they-
the
they
they
mission.
finished their
Yeah.
mission.
So, Donnie Yen and Baze had already died. And Donnie Yen's death, the I am with the Force is with me, his walk,
Walking through the battlefield.
Yeah.
that was great.
Stormtroopers can't shoot anyway, but it was nice that he had the Force with him a little
Well, I
bit.
mean,
Yeah.
in this one, we see the stormtroopers being a real problem, actually.
Yeah.
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 Whereas before, it's like, there's never a focus on the red shirts long enough to see them really getting mowed down.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a ton of damage, but these are like elite rebel guys. Seeing like the battle on Jeddah before, the stormtroopers were getting it done.
Yeah. I speaking of we didn't mention anything about it. I just wanted to mention how amazing our introduction scene to him was, where he took out all those people with. I mean, that
Oh,
was
I'm
one of
sorry.
my favorite scenes in
I
the movie.
shouldn't have glossed over that.
No. Our introduction to him was just like the adrenaline moments you get in these kind of movies.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
may have been my biggest adrenaline moment.
It was a
other than
kung
possibly
fu
the-
moment
Oh, it was so
in
good.
a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, it was so good.
Have you ever seen Ip Man?
No, I should though.
Okay. If you love that style of fighting, that is what he is
Known
infamous
for. Yeah.
And that, because I didn't know if they were going to be able to do like that style of fighting in a Star Wars film, if it would feel right.
It feels fine to
And
me.
it was great.
Yeah, it
it was
felt
so
perfect.
good. And I should not have glossed over that because it was definitely one of the highlights of the film.
Yeah, I
Now
loved it.
imagine if that guy had been a Jedi.
Yeah.
He would have been an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of Darth Maul's thing, right? Like Darth Maul was a little bit that way,
Yeah.
where he was Jedi plus, or Sith, I guess,
Yeah.
plus, martial artist.
Yeah. Which he technically didn't die in Phantom Menace because
No, I
everybody
know.
was,
Yeah.
everybody was so mad. Like, you can't get rid of him. They brought him back for
Yeah, little robotic.
robo legs,
Yeah.
robo spider legs.
Which again, Phantom Menace is a criminal underuse of a super cool character.
Yeah.
So Death Star shoots at the planet. Now you have once again this wave of Earth flying at you, Earth fire and steam water. So they know they're going to die. Everybody on the planet is going to die.
Because their ship's already destroyed. There's no way
Yeah.
out.
Exactly. Then they all die. And it's I don't know how to describe how difficult that was to watch.
It was
because
sad and heroic.
yeah, it was beautiful. And Aaron, how did that affect you whenever you saw
Oh,
it?
there's so much resonance there because you just, you've been conditioned to protagonists making it out alive. Like
Yeah.
that's just how we've been conditioned. And as the horizon is glowing,
Especially in Star Wars.
especially in Star Wars, as the horizon is glowing and coming towards them, you're like, you have the time to process. Oh, they're not making it. They're really not making it out of
Yeah,
here. Like
they're-
nobody's making it out of here, and so it gives you that time to feel what they must be feeling. Their own moment of we're not
Yeah.
making it out of here. This is it.
Yeah, that tragic moment of just like, I accept this.
Yeah.
We did good.
Yeah.
And then you have to come to those terms separately and be like, they accept this.
Yeah.
Going back to podcast proper, Aaron, whenever you were talking about what this means for A New Hope now, whenever I watch A New Hope now and they say, we got the plans for the Death Star, I'm going to be thinking in my head, don't gloss over the fact that you just got these plans. What all these amazing people died to give
Don't they
you.
say that in a New Hope?
They say many Bothans die in Return of the Jedi.
but
for
don't they
this-
say something about people dying to get the Death Star plans in A New Hope?
Do they? I don't remember.
If they do, you're probably thinking in A New Hope that it's the people who died when they boarded the ship.
Yeah.
Because they don't really talk about how they got the plans. They're just like, we've got them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up, but keep going. Yeah.
If you find the Bothans things, that's not it. That's for something different. But so
I still think one Bothan should have died at least. His name was Minnie.
yeah, like Mini. He's a small
Yeah.
Bothan.
He's a
Little
smaller
small,
Bothan.
small rat man. Yeah,
they're like
smaller,
this tall
smaller
anyway.
rat man. But so then they beam the signal, or the signal is finally finished downloading on one of the ships in the Alliance fleet, And then they're
but
being...
it gets disabled.
But it's disabled now, and it's boarded by the Empire.
Which,
And
by the way, that was the ship that the Mon Calamari guy was on.
Yeah, exactly. So then that is when we get, for me personally, the best scene in a Star Wars film ever.
Which is
Darth Vader
wrecking
house.
Oh, it was intense.
Like, seeing that, I have trouble imagining someone being like, I'm signing up for the Rebel Alliance. If I was the Empire, he would be my poster child for propaganda.
He's your war propaganda man. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you don't want to fight him.
Yeah.
Just send out holovids of him murdering an entire platoon of dudes with no trouble.
Yeah. Effortless.
He never once stopped walking forward. He never once stopped to do anything.
What a great story choice too. That that's like, because it really is unstoppable.
Yeah.
It's not just that he's going to win. He's unstoppable. He just keeps going. And so you really started to feel like, oh my goodness, he's going to get those plans. Like they can't stop him, and they didn't stop him. They just managed to outrun him.
Yeah.
So and,
barely. Yeah.
It was the coolest moment, not only that we ever see with Darth Vader, it's the coolest moment we ever see with a Sith or a Jedi.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Because he is using his entire arsenal on nobodies.
Yeah.
Not like against Obi-Wan, not against another Force user. He is just a force of nature trapped in a small metal tube with a bunch of scared human beings.
Yeah.
And, man, beyond powerful. And then they get the plans through a little slot in the door away from Darth Vader, run it to a
Hammerhead Corvette.
A Hammerhead Corvette that was docked on the giant carrier. And then Darth Vader walks out and then watches it go away, which is the exact same Hammerhead carrier that's in A New Hope that they're going to board later on, which Leia is on. She is given the codes, and they say, what are these codes? Leia looks at the camera and says, Hope, and then we get the credits.
Yeah. How long after that moment do Darth and Leia have their moment?
5 minutes.
Right? Like it leads us right to the cusp of New Hope.
Because they immediately catch, because we enter with them jumping out of hyperspace and being boarded, right?
Yeah.
By Vader, who is in pursuit.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly. And then that's...
Oh, it's incredible.
So that's, how A New Hope is technically like a 5.5 hour movie now.
Yeah, no, that's just incredible.
And it makes it way harder for me to judge New Hope poorly in any way.
Yeah. Aaron, you're so right when you say that this makes A New Hope better.
It makes it such a better movie.
Yeah.
And it was already one of my favorite movies. I loved it, but
it's kind of hard to imagine like that, right? Like, you love this movie already, and then something comes along like 30 years later, and...
So let me ask you this. Is it possible then that they're going to be this great at this that we're going to get some of these same kind of feelings with the Han Solo movie or the Boba Fett movie?
I don't think so.
I think it's going to be harder.
Because they're dealing with source material directly.
Yeah.
As opposed to like dealing with something that was never talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm nervous about they're not calling the other one Star Wars Story. They're calling them Star Wars something else. What is it?
I'll look it up. So it's Han Solo is one of them.
I really hope that they bring the same level of play to those as this.
Anthology films.
They're calling them Star Wars Anthology. So Star Wars Anthology Han Solo comes out in 2018. Star Wars Anthology Boba Fett comes out in 2020.
Because, see, with this film, because we knew nothing really, besides that they get the plans, they could do most of whatever they wanted. Killing off everybody was a great decision.
Yeah.
Because it was powerful, and it also is like, well, why don't we ever see Jyn Erso again?
Yeah.
Because she died.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
With Han Solo, it's a lot harder.
I certainly, after Force Awakens and this, there's some level of trust that they're at least treating the property well, and they're willing to
Fingers
to
crossed,
do what it takes. So, man, Disney hitting it out of the park with Star Wars and Marvel movies and Pixar and
Disney proper.
They're just printing money right now over at Disney.
Yeah. I wish I would have invested in Disney like 10 years ago.
I wish I would have invested in Disney like 100 years ago.
In 1960, When did Disney
Yeah.
go public? Yeah, that would have been a good investment.
Put
That
like
would've been a good investment,
$1 in
Jareth.
Disney, and
Jareth?
then boom, I'd be a
Jareth?
billionaire.
I think
Steamboat
you're
Willie.
making great, wise investments, son.
Steamboat Willie comes out and Jared's like, "Here's my money."
Here's all of my money.
Yeah,
If I could time travel,
yeah. All right. Wow, I want to go see this again.
Let's do
I
it.
also do.
All right, we're out of here. We're gonna watch. We're gonna watch the movie again.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. I love that. It was a note.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.